everybody, and welcome back to the 119th episode of the HSBG podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins, and I'm here with my constant co-host, Shadybunny. Shady, how you doing?
I'm doing rather well, Collins. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I woke up feeling refreshed or whatever, even though I slept like not at the normal time I always sleep at, but it's been a good couple of days. We've got some interesting Hearthstone news, some good, some more other emotions, I guess.
You could say bad. Bad is fine.
Oh, that's a word I could use.
That's a word. That's descriptions.
You gave me like a list of like 60 words I couldn't say anymore.
Yeah,
I thought
advertisers and stuff. Gotta be careful.
Yeah.
All right.
Fair enough. But
So
definitely.
Yeah, I was gonna say Collins is alluding to the essentially the lack of tournaments from Blizzard for Battlegrounds. So
Yeah.
This is something that if you don't follow the competitive scene at all, you have no idea.
Which is a little bit sad, right?
Yes, which is incredibly likely as well if you play that you don't really know there's a competitive scene for Battlegrounds because it's just so poorly marketed. This is it was and I guess we can walk down memory lane a little bit where I guess it was like 2 years of like Lobby Legends circuit roughly, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, maybe 2 years is accurate. Like the first year was like pretty solid, and then the second year honestly didn't feel the same. Is screen first? I don't think so. But I guess you have to check. In terms of the second year, right? This is when they cut it down to 3. It used to be almost 1 a month. It was like 10 over the course of the year. That was really good because it always gave you something to push for if you were in that capacity, right? Obviously, it's not easy to get into Lobby Legends, so you had to have like that skill set. But for the people that could, it was definitely gave you motivation to play and definitely made like the end of the months interesting.
Let's first maybe explain the qualification process, right?
Sure.
What? So. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like for the context of this, it's not that important.
Well, well, I mean, you say that it's not that easy, right? So, I mean, just essentially, I find it important just because we can make the contrast where you can see the evolution. So we had 1 year, I would say, of just... So this was the first year of competitive Battlegrounds where there was actually a circuit. Before then, there were some tournaments and this and that, and it was cool. But, competitive circuit from Blizzard. But with the introduction of Lobby Legends, as Collins has already mentioned, there were 10 tournaments in 1 year. And the way how you qualified for that was to end in the top 16 on ladder of one of the regions, right? So you had the Asia region, Americas, Europe, and then China had their own qualification process. So then those 16 all advanced to the next stage, who then played a sort of mini tournament against each other. And then the top 12 of that tournament were joined by the top 4 from China's tournament. And then you had 16 players who duked it out in Lobby Legends over the course of 2 days. So with that, there were certain things that could have improved where there maybe you wanted to expand it a little bit where it wasn't just the top 16 from ladder. You could have done something with a little bit more advertising for the qualifiers because the qualifiers were essentially completely non-broadcasted. It was just from the players streaming, I believe, and they had to stream with half an hour delay. So a lot of marketing could have been improved there, but that was like a good start, I would say. That was a great start for a competitive Battleground circuit. And then you put that to the stark contrast of the next year. The next year, instead of having 16 players from each region, essentially every month, right? 10 months of the year, it changed to, we'll take 4 players per region, and it's once every 3 months, and it's the average performance you had over the course of those 3 months. So that's, you went from giving people like hope, right? Like essentially the top 50 every month kind of had hope, because a top 50 player can sneak into the top 16. That is possible. That is feasible. You could have a good run. You could have a good push. But being in the top 4 of a region on the average on 4 months, there's like 10 players that can do that. So per region, let's say, right, who have a chance of doing that. So yeah, that already showed that the direction they were headed with the competitive. Honestly, when I looked at that announcement, I essentially said, oh, there was essentially someone from higher up said, hey, stop this competitive circuit. And somebody says, we can't do that. You can't just like stop out of nowhere. It's like, all right, well then make it cheaper, make it faster, make it less resource intense. And I think that's what we got. And that's kind of sad. But on the other hand, I do understand it if it is a business. And if they don't see any future, that's essentially what I'm assuming, right? They don't see any future where any kind of investment in the competitive scene isn't really going to pay off for them. They just said, okay, well, stop dumping money into this. This is not a good investment.
Yeah, I mean, you could always kind of go back and say, oh yeah, from a competitive or from a monetary standpoint, right? We're not making resources. We're not making even it's not even breaking even, essentially, right? You could probably go through that, but it's also how it was promoted, how it was justified, right? Like BGs has been out for a long time, and they did have a lot of opportunities to kind of capitalize, especially on the initial hype. But that's really where they would drop the ball. Like imagine if, a month after it came out, they started discussing internally, like, oh, how do we have a competitive scene around that? Like, what would be good? Things like that. Talking to some of the even the players, right? Like, what would be good in terms of tournament circuit? I'm sure things could have been better. Obviously, I don't think it's like malicious intent. It's just like, hey, we maybe didn't think about it early enough to really jump on that window of opportunity when it was there. Now, things with having to, like, BJ's was in a unique situation since they could have actually broadcasted on Twitch while they had that YouTube deal. So they could have actually kind of done things in that window, even though maybe it would have meant they had like different they would have to hire more people, right, to balance both.
That's what I'm thinking when I think about this. So when I look at this, I say, well, you could have kept that competitive scene alive for a lot less money because people don't require the insane prize pool. Sure, some people might say, oh, it's no longer worth it, but a lot of people would have still played. And
yeah, I mean, people do the community tournaments. Those don't
exactly.
have
you like $500, right? Like play an entire night to maybe win $500, right? So like that's like, oh, first, yeah, or like $500 split across the top 8. So it's like,
the thing is, like, Blizzard can't do that. To be fair,
exactly, right? So that's my point. My point is that even though it would have been feasible to keep the competitive scene alive at a lot lower expense rate, the image, right, would immediately be, oh, Blizzard can't afford to pay their players.
Yeah.
Right. So there's
you would have
exactly right. Sure. That is the problem, that they can't do the thing that would have kept the competitive scene alive or maybe even made it profitable, because there would immediately have been that outside looking in like, oh, look at this peanuts prize money they're offering. There must be in some deep shit. And same thing with like setting up the tournament, right? You could have community casters. People would have loved to just jump in and do that. But again, then you're not working with professionals, and like you image wise, like, you have to make sure that everyone on air is going to, say exactly what you want them to say, right? Nothing weird coming out at the wrong time. So while I see all the ways that it could have been kept alive, I also see like, well, once you get to that stage as a business and you're that big, you sort of have to do things the expensive way, and for them it was just not worth it. And I can see it, I can understand it. So I mean, I think the best way to just say it is it's unfortunate. I think that indeed a better way of, like, if they had really struck the iron when it was hot, as they say, then it could have been justified, right? As there was huge BG hype, and they like if they had jumped on it and broadcasted on Twitch and all that, sure, could have seen it. But we see this with a lot of stuff where just esports in general, I think, is just downsizing, and people are just
it is.
So
it definitely is for sure.
That's
in general. It's not even just esports, but esports is getting a pretty big hit. But tech in general is also getting
okay.
But,
so that's yeah, go ahead.
Out of our scope of a podcast.
I was gonna say, like, it's also where I just admit that I don't have the level of understanding to really look at the meta. Well, just look at the complete set of circumstances and say, like, okay, was that even a thing that would have worked out, right? Because we could make the argument of, well, what if they had really gone all in when it was more popular? What if they had really pushed on Twitch? Would that have, as from a business point of view, would that have even worked out? Like, I don't know. I don't have enough experience in that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, let's say one of us was on the helm. Would we have saved it? And the answer is not a guaranteed yes.
So probably no, because it's hard.
Right? That's a problem, right?
Yeah. So you could say, like, well, what if we, get more viewership and this and that? But at the end of the day, if you can't turn it into a profitable business decision, they're not going to do it. Right? Like, we can make it less bad, but that's not what they're looking for, right? They're looking for, well, it's like, why are we spending time and resources on this? Anyways, like, let's not go on for too long.
I do want to say, like, regardless of all this, it's still very sad. Like, regardless of, like, the reality of the situation, I was just sad to hear the news when I read it, like, oh, there's no BGs. They not even one tournament this year. Like, what happened? Where did we go wrong? It was something I was really happy to see. Like, when it was announced, have some tournament, have some notoriety, something to look forward, work towards. Even the 3 months tournaments, right? Even that, obviously that hurt a lot, but it still existed. I was still like, okay, there's something for players to look forward to. Just to have it removed, kind of. In the Blizzard way, where they just stopped talking about it, that kind of thing. It just felt painful, and I was, like, pretty sad about that. So, regardless of, like, could have been better, just from a player standpoint, it's just sad to see. And as a podcast that covers BG topics, right? Like, it's it hits me a little bit harder than maybe the general audience, especially since I'm participating in things like that. So, you just wanted to put it out there. Really wish things could have been different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess I'm less in that regard. I'm a little bit more like, oh, well, it doesn't make sense. We'll move on.
Yeah, you and your business mind, yeah, whatever. I'm just saying, from an emotional standpoint, it hurts to see it. That's all.
No, I mean, from a purely selfish standpoint, right? For me, it was perfect. The first season was perfect, right? I had something like that made streaming so engaging. Like, end of the month was a huge event, right? Like, it would pull a lot of viewers. You were playing, you actually cared, right? Right now, if I have a bad day, sure, it sucks. If I have a good day, sure, it's great. But man, if you have a good day when you're playing for top 16 and you just, like, you got into the top 10 and you're chilling, you're like, oh, that felt amazing. So yeah, that almost goes without saying that I would have also preferred, from a purely selfish standpoint, to have a competitive circuit in. All right. But, so we got that. Essentially, that might be the last coverage on Lobby Legends on the podcast, which is a little sad to say. But we have, as the game moves in a bit more of a, I would say, I guess, casual direction, but that's not necessarily, like, smaller, right? It's just, like, less focused on competitive and more on, let's just give the players the best experience possible. The spells have been good, so I do want to stress that right. Even though the competitive circuit, well, we could say might be dead, at least for now, right? There's nothing from Blizzard for Battlegrounds. I would say the game itself and what they're adding mechanics wise is probably better than ever. So I do want to make that very clear, that even though certain aspects might be less, I do still think that the game is receiving a lot of support. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm complaining about the level of support in general.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Anyways, let's get out of this sadness. We've got patch to talk about, things like that, right? Like that's happy. That's happy, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, so we had a for those of you who skipped a few weeks or so, we had a long drought of no patch due to the holiday season. So that's an extended period, and let's just say the meta had really settled in. Honestly, I could probably play like when I just woke up, be like, oh, sport bet, Rofa sport bet, Rofa chicken. It was such a habit. It was like, okay, go to 4, get the sport bet, go to 5, get the chicken. It was like so just droned into my head. So yeah, a patch definitely was welcome. So yeah, why don't you take it away, Cos? Let's tackle the patch.
All right, so finally we got some Battleground updates. We've made some changes to Landlubber, some economy-related spells to address the unintended play pattern, where players would stay on low tiers. They never think, oh my god, these cards on low tiers, they're actually good. You know what I mean? Like people will play these. And by dozen of spells in a turn, they didn't like that. We've also adjusted Hawkstrider Herald and removed Titus Tribute to lower the frequency and power spike of late game beast strategies. So I think like just looking at the dev comment, I think that's a good idea. Landlubber play pattern, I do agree, maybe was unintended. It was fun to play, and I honestly don't even think the stats were that good for Landlubber.
Stats were horrible.
Yeah. However, it probably was different at super high elo.
Still
probably
horrible.
like
well, okay, what's
probably still horrible, but like
what's super
I think
high?
There's some players that
yeah. So if you're saying Jeef and Dog, right? So, but we have to like at some point you need to be able to have
outliers.
Like,
yeah, fair
yeah. Well, you need to have a sample. If you're creating a sample size, you kind of need like 100 players, right? So it's like if we're gonna be like not the top 100, those are scrubs.
Jeef don't count.
Yeah. Basically, let's eliminate the 20 best players in the world from the sample. Is Lubber a good strategy? No.
Fair enough.
Like if you're not one of the 20 best players in the world, like Lubber wasn't a good strategy. That doesn't mean
if you're 21 best player, you could probably make it work.
But no, anyone could have made it work. But the thing is, like, is it worth it on average? Like anyone can play Lubber when you get an Nala from the scouts, right? You're like, wee. Yeah. But
I forced Landlubber and I didn't win, so I gotta say maybe not, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. It's I think most players lost way more MMR playing Lubber than they did gaining MMR. But I do still think it's good to adjust that because it's just against the spirit of the game if you create a situation where someone on tier 2 creates a much larger board than someone on tier 6. It's like, what are we leveling for then? What's the whole point of Battlegrounds is to play the early game in a manner that allows you to sneak up the tiers to then get more powerful cards. If you create a whole system where it's advantageous to never leave tier 2 and you can create like 500 units, I agree. That's not a good way to play the game. So it's cool that that was available.
It looks silly from a new player point of view, right? Like, let's say you're teaching a new player, and it's like, okay, you have 6 tiers. What you want to do is get
new player. I don't think that's relevant.
Forever.
New player would never do Lubber. It's like your head would explode.
Well, let's say no, they would. Okay, because like what happens as a new player if you're trying to learn the game? You Google, hey, what's the strategy? And then you see, oh, everyone's spamming Lubber because it looks cool, it's popular. Let me try that. Let me learn that. Oh, Dog's playing Lubber. Okay, all right. Let me see how you play that kind of game plan. So I think it's possible. Like whatever looks flashy, people will try.
Yeah, but they will not be able to pull it off. That's what I'm saying.
That's not the point. That's not. It's not whether they can do it. They can actually pull it off. It's like new players will look at like what the flashy looking video is and try to copy it. So,
sure, you mean they have an opinion on the meta being silly because a high level player did something and they go like, oh, that shouldn't be possible.
No, like that's no, like if like you're just looking at like what's popular, when you go to YouTube videos, it's not like the here is the boring strategy. That's not the
No,
most popular type.
I'm trying to get your point, I guess. So maybe I forgot.
All right, okay. So let's say you're a new player trying to learn the game, right? What are things do? You either watch streamers play, you look at YouTube, you know.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of
okay,
thing.
but I guess why is it a bad thing? I guess I'll it's probably my fault for not asking that question.
Like if you look at the strategy and what people are like spamming or making videos about is lubber, where you're just staying low tier, or like remember like when the strat is like just stay on one and like play tog waggle or whatever, you know, that like those type of strategies, like it just looks weird if you're like a game designer.
So it looks bad for the game because okay, sure.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Okay, cool. Okay.
No, I sometimes I'm just trying to understand, right? So
cool. That's my point. Like it just looks weird if you're a game designer, like, oh, you know, people are like just forcing this, like just stay on two, stay on one strategy. It just looks weird. I can see why they want to remove that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's to put it like the kids would say, it's a bad look. All right.
Do kids say that? That's the kids don't say that anymore. Shady.
They said that 5 years ago, Collins. Come on, man. I finally caught up.
Times have passed.
These damn kids. Right. Did they say lit anymore? Is that a thing?
What is Louis say?
Lit. All right, here we go. First card change.
Archlich Kel'Thuzad. So it's going from at the end of your turn, destroy the undead to the left of this and resummon it. So now at the end of your turn, you destroy the undead to the left of this and resummon an exact copy.
Right. So
now this is not a change. Honestly,
yeah, no functional change. Just the, I guess. So when people saw me making triples with this, they were like, "Oh, you can do that." So probably the resummon and an exact copy, like that just makes it a bit more clear what's going on.
More clear. Yeah, this is just a clarity change.
Yeah, clarification. All right. So first actual gameplay change is Moros.
Steward of Death. So it's going from a 6/1 Reborn Death Rattle, give your undeads +2/+6, to now a 5/1 Reborn Death Rattle, give your undeads +1/+5. So it basically lost half. Like it got cut in half essentially. Like that's
the damage. The damage got cut in half. And you lose 1 health.
Well, the buff got cut in half. Well,
no, it's from
the attack buff got cut in 1. I guess that's true. It's not.
I mean, you're getting 5 health instead of 6. That's not half, right?
That's fair. Okay, you're right. Okay. It's not as bad as I make it out to seem. I'm like, oh my god, your attack is cut in half, but your health is going from 6 to 5. And I would say that's the more important. So, this is still a pretty important nerf, I would say.
Yeah, that matters.
The scaling for Reborn or the scaling for Undead was really, really good. So
this was such an easy top 2. Like find a Moros, find a KT. Like, oh, okay, I'm top 2. I can relax.
I mean, essentially, you're getting 12 health for attack on all of your undeads. Like it's so, and then you can like if you
have Titus,
eat it or destroy it, yeah, it gets crazy.
It's very it was very, very, very good. So it's still fine. I think it does what it needs to do. It's really good for undead. It still works really well with KT, still works really well with Titus, but it was dumb before, right? Before it was just a stupid amount of stats that if somebody hits a KT and a Moros early, you couldn't really overcome that until, you know, you're like proper late game with a brand and popping off, or you're doing something with like big ass Nagas. Because
Beast.
Yeah, or beasts, right? But in the mid game, that health mattered so much. And when you get more towards the late game, where you can really make these chonkers of units that just, you know, dunk your guy for 100 damage. If your undead don't have enough damage to punch back, the health doesn't really matter. You're just playing around Murgle anyway. So it's I like that they nerfed this. I think it's good.
Yeah, I think that's fair as well. It's it's still playable, but makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have the, in my opinion, most contested change, Hawkstrider Herald. It's going from a tier 5 to a tier 6, going from a 5-2 to a 6-2. But essentially, they moved it up a tier to the highest tier. Now, unfortunately, they did not delete this card. They just said, okay, we're just gonna make it where it's not as seen, but it still exists. You could still high roll it, but it's definitely significantly harder. You do have to like put some more effort in, but still, it's still in the game. So, what's your thoughts on this change in particular?
It's a very significant change. Just
Yeah, for sure it is. Like
yeah.
going from tier 5 to tier 6 is like
well,
is a big.
Let's just cover the basic
sure.
thing here.
The numbers.
Yeah, there's 7 chickens in the game now. There used to be 9, so that is very significant. And then the other thing is that a part of the reason why beasts were so good is that you could find everything on 5 and just triple into Goldrin. So you did not need the power level to 6 at all when you were beast. You could roll on 5 for a very long time. You got banana, you got chicken, you got Titus, you could get Feathermane, you could get Reborn Scarab, and between all of that, you could have just tripled into a Goldrin. And if you don't get it, when you have your whole spell train up and running, because you found chicken, you found Sporebat, you found Titus, you have Reborn, then you just have so much money that you're like, oh, I'll just level and discover a death rattle. Oh, there's my Goldrin.
I'll just use my gain 15 gold spells.
Stupid amount.
Level and get Goldrin. Yeah.
So that play pattern is completely disrupted because you have to either now triple into the chicken with the Sporebat, which is like that's just not very likely. That's going to happen sometimes, but then you're the outlier. So in order to do beasts now, you have to do the Sporebat and then find Titus, and there's no more Titus tribute, right? We covered that's in the announcement, but we'll cover that in a bit. So it's just a lot more fragile. So this is important to point out because when people see this nerf, they're going to look at end game beast builds and say, this is still exactly the same. What the fuck, right? It's like, yeah. If you look at somebody that won the game with beasts, they're probably going to have all that stuff. But that's not how you nerf a type, or that's not the only way you nerf a type. So you can nerf a type by making their final board a lot weaker. But you can also nerf a type by making it much harder to achieve that final board. Before this nerf, it was extremely easy for beast boards to go completely out of control. And chicken on 5 was a big culprit because Sporebat plus Titus plus chicken it fills your hand completely with spells, and that's the main reason why beasts were so dumb. They had by far the best spell generation in the game. By far. Just unmatched. And now you've dealt that a significant blow. So beasts on average are a lot weaker, but when you see someone that collects all the beast pieces, they're still about as strong. And I think that's where the confusion comes in, because I've seen this a few times. People look at a beast build and say like, oh, I thought beasts were nerfed. It's like, they are, but not in their max capacity. Their average power has been nerfed like crazy. But yeah, the people that make it to 6 and that hit all the stuff, they're still about as strong.
I do want to say, like, we are like, oh, Herald, this change did a lot. It's Titus Tribute also doing a ton of work of being removed in terms of making this a lot more balanced as well.
Yeah, Titus Tribute was absolutely insane.
Yeah, so I think those two together do a lot, where if Titus Tribute was still in the game, you'd still have problems. So I do want to mention that, like, yeah, this is a good nerf, but the more important nerf was like just removing Titus Tribute, not having that interaction.
Yep.
All right.
So I think this is a good idea, because death rattles right now, whether we like it or not, have sort of been balanced around chicken. So if you just like destroy chicken altogether, like Goldrin feels really bad when you don't have chicken.
Yeah, I imagine. I know.
Like your Goldrin dies with the Titus, so you're like, oh, 6 damage on my beasts. I guess.
That's nothing, yeah.
If you're like, okay, go mech horse, 1818. What the fuck is this?
I mean, 1818 mech horse.
Yeah, but I mean, you're playing in a power creeped environment where pirates are still huge, right? Dragons still do stupid stuff and like all that. So, anyways, we can move on, but it's just, I would like to just point it out because we talked about some alternatives, but I think this is a good start. And then if it's now still too strong, we can explore the, your left death rattle triggers, right? Instead of all your death rattle triggers.
All right. Next up, we have Mystic Spore Bath. It's going from a 5-1 to a 3-1. I mean, that doesn't change things too much. It just means you might lose the fights when you buy this, but it still has the same effect.
Yeah, it lowers the win rate on the card, but you're still buying it because it's still a very good high win rate card.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, I guess the win rate on the card went down significantly due to the chicken nerf. Because now you're no longer,
sure.
Before you would do Spore Bat in the hopes of finding the chicken. Now you know you're not going to find chicken for a long time.
But what's more interesting is the win rate when you buy it and play it. Like, and like that turn and like the next 2 turns, like how does changing the stats change those metrics?
Yeah, you take more damage if you buy Spore Bat now.
I think that makes sense, right? Because it's a scaling card. So
yeah, it used to be completely non-brainer. You just always buy it.
Yeah,
no brainer.
Yeah. Now as a 3-1, you might have to be like, ooh, can I afford this? Like, am I strong enough? Kind of thing. I mean, you still take it, but
you still buy it. It's fun. It's just spell generation, right? It's early spell generation. You buy it.
Yeah, you buy it and like it saves you. Like you make it up at the next turn.
You buy it and you hope it's not pants. It's like, please not pants. Please not just a coin.
Yeah. You don't like pants?
I prefer Discover a Battle Cry or something.
Yeah, sure. Next up, we have Landlubber. It was removed, but it's back. Now, it went from a tier 2 to a tier 3. It also gains 1 in stats, but essentially it's now in a higher tier, so a lot of the combos of staying on tier 2 is going to be disrupted since you have to get it on 3. I guess theoretically you could triple into this one too, then do it that way.
Yeah, but they made other changes.
You need multiple Landlubbers. Yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit to the spell pool change because if we're gonna talk Lubber, spell pool is incredibly important. So.
All right, we can skip this and come back to it once we go to spell pool.
How about we can talk Lubber. It's fine. Like
but we a long talk.
Sorry.
We have other things. Okay, fine.
I mean, whether we talk spells now or after, it's the same length, right?
Okay, fine. That's fair.
It's like, no, it takes longer if we talk about them now. Right. So actually, let's just talk spell pool changes. The thing all the way at the bottom, right? There it says Reckless Investment, Leaf Through the Pages, and Tie Distribute have been removed from the spell pool. Tie Distribute, we've already covered. It's out. Mm-hmm. We think it's great. Tie Distribute was, I mean, loyal listeners of the podcasts know our take on it. Tie Distributes was absolutely batshit crazy broken. So yes, thank you. Out of the game with that. But Leaf Through the Pages and Reckless Investment, we can see that is a direct just targeting at Lubber, being like, stop doing the Lubber thing, okay? Right? Just stop. Stop it. Stop it now. So without getting the book, Leaf Through the Pages, you're no longer rolling for free, or at least not at a discount. And with Reckless Investment, you don't get those insane turns where you just go investment. And because of that, you could roll more. And because of that, you get more of those careful investments.
I do think Reckless Investment was a problematic spell even without Lubber. So I think it's fine.
It was fun to play with. But yeah, it would create some power spikes.
That sounds, when you say it's fun to play with, that to me, that sounds like, oh, this was a broken mechanic that I uncurved.
Does Shady like it? Then ban it, because that means it's good.
I mean that like Shady likes it. Okay, we need to
get it out of here. Get it out of here.
Leaf Through the Pages was
the book. Was that that was 2 golds. You get 3 rolls for free.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
So you would roll at a heavy discounts with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that just helped you
reach infinite status.
Just check your get a lot of spells and have it's free money essentially, right? So
yeah,
and it also just lets you check for good spells to get even more money. So it just did a lot of work for 2 gold.
So
that's combo.
I would say that the tier 2 Lubber strategy where you so for anyone who was not aware, the thing people used to do with Lubber was popularized by Jeef. You would get a Rewinder, you would get Landlubber, and then you would just buy a lot of those Hasty Excavations, which is the damage coin. But then because you have your Rewinder, you wouldn't take damage. You would get as many Lubbers on the board as possible, so you would try to get 4 or 5 spells in your shop. So sometimes you would roll multiple of those damage coins, which would give you a lot of money. You would buy Careful Investment, you would buy the book to roll for free. And then the whole goal was to have a Patient Scout on your board and have that turn into an Azurite, which is the elemental that buffs your shop every time you cast a spell, which is obviously very good if you're doing this strategy, or a Nala, which buffs your board, which is even better. It's a lot less work than having to, buff elementals and then buy them. And that's why Lubber was so oppressive. So now instead of just putting Lubber on 3, so Collins said, well, you could triple into it. The developers probably thought about that as well. It's like, what if they triple into it? Let's target the spell pool a little bit to just make it a lot more difficult. And with no leaf through the pages, with no reckless investment, because eventually you would go to 3 a lot of the time, it's difficult. Now, I will say that the same person that popularized the old Lubber build has already put a video out on the new Lubber build. You can do a Quillbore variant, which was already being played before, but the reason why it was not very known or very popular is that Paint Smudger was disabled for a very, very long time. Paint Smudger is the Quillbore that whenever you cast a Tavern spell, it casts a gem on a random friendly Quillbore. That combination still works if you, say, start out with a Moonbake and Jazzer, and then you roll into a Piper, and then you get the Jazzer, and you get the Lubber. Like, you could technically stay on tier 3, where you're buffing your gems, and then because you have Lubbers, you're rolling into spells, and then your Paint Smudger starts buffing your board. Now, that doesn't sound very impressive until you do a little bit of math, right? Let's say you pump up your gems. I always give the example of like 8-8. Which, if you're staying on 3, is not entirely impossible, right? If you have 2 Pipers on the board and you play every Jazzer you see, then let's say your gems are 8-8. You now have, let's be conservative, just 2 regular Paint Smudgers on your board, nothing too crazy. That means every time you cast the spell, you're getting +16/+16 to your board. Now, let's say, go ahead.
The 8-8 is not being conservative, Shady.
If you're staying on tier 3 the whole time?
I don't buy this build, this secondary tier 3
okay.
build. I don't buy this.
8 damage is not conservative at all. 8 damage is being conservative.
Yeah,
okay, so say 8-4. Say 8-4. That's one golden Jazzer, right? Like you're staying on, which I think is extremely conservative for health. You're still getting 16 + 8 every time you cast a spell. That's a coin. That's a careful investment, right? That's a hasty excavation. That's any spell. You get 16 damage and 8 health to your board. And then, if you tripled into a Rogoog, suddenly if you hit the Rogoog, that's double. And we're talking the very conservative estimate. So if you have bigger gems, if you have multiple smudgers, it's absolutely a thing, right? You can do this. I will just say, don't force it unless you don't care, right? If you don't care about your MMR, then sure, have some fun. But the build is essentially you build up your gems with Jazzer and with Piper, and then you get Smudger, Landlubber, and you just play cheap spells. And then you get a huge amount of gems being played, and then because of that, you're going to be winning your fights, so overconfidence is going to give you more money, and then suddenly you start to turn with 18 gold, 19 gold, 22 gold, and you can buy a lot of cheap spells. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's not worth the effort, in my opinion. This is my personal just you can play normal and still be fine. Yeah, if you get the right pieces, it's probably still fine. I just think it's that number was cool, and you could see the flow state. You could see oh yeah, they got all the pieces. Here comes the combo. Here it's we're just kind of playing Quillbores, and there's a Landlubber in here.
Yeah, your 100 gold turns are over. You're no longer doing 100 gold turns.
And if I can't do 100 gold turns,
what's the point?
Yeah, I agree.
All these plebs spending 10 gold, spending just 20 gold. I don't care about that.
Disgusting. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah,
speaking of quills,
overall, it's a fair nerf, I think. Right, in terms of getting rid of the unintended consequences, but still having the card be played.
Having the little fun. I would have preferred if Lubber could have been a 2-drop and for them to break the Lubber strategy, but I think they would have had to destroy too much economy pieces on 2 then, so I like that, instead they made it a 3.
I'm not 4-on-4. I'm more 6-on 10 or 6-on 9, I don't know if I like 4-on-4. I I like being on 6 on like maybe like the turn.
Yeah, just to give a little bit of context, right, for podcast listeners. There's a chat comment accusing Collins of going 4-on-4, and Collins is explaining that no, I would never go tier 4 on 2, which makes sense because if you go 4-on-4, you have 20 health.
Yeah,
you start the game on 20 health.
You die with that.
You're not going to 6 with 20 health. Yeah.
What I do is I get strong in the mid game, and then I just like take that mid game strength to go to 6. So going to 4-on-4 means I'm super weak in the early to mid game, so I can't level to 6 because I take too much damage. So it's actually better to like warrior curve is actually better than 4-on-4 to get to 6 in my opinion, because you don't have to high roll. You get like a triple. You don't have to high roll versus going to 4, you're kind of like hoping you god draw in the turn after it or you die.
Yeah, you have a very small margin for bad chops.
Yeah.
Any bad chops will kill you. All right. So let's move on here. We have Moonbacon Jazzer as our first Quillboard change.
Right. So this is going from a 1-3 to a 2-3. Kind of
crazy.
Surprising.
It's kind of crazy because we were like, Moonbacon on 2? That's insane. And now it's getting extra stats. So that's going to be a trend. This is the devs being like, do Quillbore. No, seriously, play Quillbore. Play Quillbore, okay? So, and this change honestly is nothing compared to the next change. The next change,
for sure.
The next change is the biggest, like, play Quillbore kind of just nudge, I would say. Let's call it a gentle nudge towards Quillbore.
Geomagus Rugug.
Yeah, we say Rogug. Yeah.
So it used to be a 3-6. Whenever a blood gem is put on display, a blood gem on a different friendly minion. Now it's a 4-6. Divine Shield. Oh, jeez.
It's so insane to give it extra damage as well, right? I love that they were like, we're going to give it shields. You want to give it extra damage? Fuck it. Let's give it an extra damage too. Fuck it. We'll throw in an extra damage for free. Here we go. If they're not playing Quillbore now, I don't know what we have to do to make them play Quillbore.
To be fair, like, it's Deflecto level. You know what I mean? Like, terms of, like, good. Or in terms of, like, here's a free Divine Shield that, might not need it. Like, Deflecto?
Well, no. This is... So, in the meta, Deflecto sucks, right?
Okay, sure. Historically.
Deflecto had 3 good years, or whatever it was. It was 3 excellent years for Deflecto. It's
not because Deflecto sucks. It's just that mechs don't have spell generation.
Yeah, but the thing is, Quillbore don't either, which is why people aren't playing mechs in Quillbore.
Yeah.
So so essentially, guys, this is what's going on. Where the reason why beasts are so much better than Quillbore, or at least were before the patch, is that you were generating a crap ton of spells with your Spore Bat and your Chicken. Quillbore don't do that. There is no Quillbore end of turn, fill your hand with spells, or every time you cast a blood gem, have a chance to get a spell, or whatever it is. There is no mechanic where you're being provided with a ton of spells. And that inherently puts the type at a huge disadvantage versus a type that can generate a bunch of spells.
Because spells are broken. And
spells are broken.
They need to be nerfed. Like,
they don't need
no.
All right, cut him. Get him off the air. Get him off the air. That's it. Pull it. All right. No nerf to spells.
Alright, fine.
Oh my god. No, but so there is a breaking point, of course, right? So
yeah, for sure.
They're essentially looking for that point where how strong do we need to make these cards so that it doesn't matter that they don't get spells? Because something like Rogug was probably already a lot more popular at lower MMR. Because this is a reaction I get quite often when I'm streaming. There's people saying, like, I can't believe they gave it Divine Shield. This is so insane. Quillbore were already dominant. It's like, oh, I get it. It's because that was very straightforward, right? Quillbore are so straightforward. Where, like, you buy the Piper, you buy the Jazzer, and then you just gem your Rogug. That's it. That's your whole game. Like, you don't have to do anything else. And, like, if you get lucky, you get a Charlie with, like, a Drakari or something, right? But you could play your whole game just having, like, boppers giving you gems and putting it on Rogug. Whereas when you played with the, like, very high-level comps, that was like, okay, and then I get a golden touch in my hand, and I'll make another golden banana, and then I'll, like, gotta give it divine shield, and I do this, and then,
stop lying. You get a sport bat, you get the
no. The sport bat gives you the golden touch. That's what I'm saying. Right?
You get those. No, you get the sport bat, you get the herald, and then you just like roll it down for Goldrin and Titus.
No, but I'm saying the turn of like a high level beast build is so much better than. And then I played 5 gems on my Rogook. Right, so
I see what you're saying.
A high-level beast build is like, oh, let me make a second golden banana with this golden touch because I have enough money to buy the whole fucking shop anyway. Right, you do that, but at lower level, people aren't doing that, even with beast. Right,
I see.
So that's what I'm saying. With the more,
they just don't get good spells at lower level.
That's it. There's the higher MMR. Okay, no. All right, let me make a serious point. The more complicated a strategy gets, the worse it is, the lower you go in terms of MMR. And that's where it's also difficult if you see that Quillboar are so horribly underperforming at high MMR, but I don't even know if the stats would indicate that they were doing fine at lower MMR. They have to make a little bit of a call where, okay, do we buff it so that it gets any kind of play at high level? Or do we just leave it because it's fine at low MMR? Now, keep in mind, this is not me saying that it was fine. It was just better, right? But anyways, this is why I think some people look at this change and say, I can't believe they gave a Divine Shield. That's so insane. And I'm saying, like, the last guy that played Quillboar was like 2 weeks ago. I saw a guy trying Quillboar. It's like
I would say that beasts get Divine Shield for free. Why can't we give one Quillboar Divine Shield? You know what I'm saying? Huh? So I like when you look at it that way, it's not that bad, right? Like,
well, this is like just sick tempo, right? Because it's so perfect. Because you dump your gems on this guy. It's so perfect, right? It's so perfect, right? You dump gems on the guy with Divine Shield. That's great, right? So
makes intuitive sense. So
yeah,
I'm kind of down.
Yeah. No, I'm down for a Quillboar patch. It's totally okay. All right, next up.
I don't think we're in a Quillboar meta, Shady. You think we're in a Quillboar meta?
I won 2 games playing Quillboar today.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, but is it a Quillboar meta?
That's okay. Well, I'll put it this way: it's a lot more of a Quillboar meta than it was before. You know,
okay,
like, sure,
that's fair. That's
like,
fair.
Yeah, we're a lot closer to a Quillboar meta than we were before. Oh man.
All right, fair. Next up we have Perky Piper. It's going from a 3-1 to a 5-1, so it's becoming the new Spore Bat.
It's like Spore Bat. Yeah, I love it. They were like, you can just see it.
You could just do that?
They were just like they're looking at the levers like, what if Piper up, Spore Bat down? Beautiful. Genius. And it is. Why not, right? All right, cool.
And then we have Paint Smudger. It's in the game. Wow, who would have guessed? And, as well as it gains 2 attack and 1 health, so it's going from a 3-2 to a 5-3, which is significantly better stats, right? 3-2 is really not that good. So
just gonna say one thing, Collins.
What?
Dread Infernal.
What about Dread Infernal?
I thought that was like, I thought you were busting my balls before. It was like every time a card gets extra stat, it was like, I remember back in the day when Dread Infernal was a 4-4 and they changed it to a 6-6, and then I started buying a bunch of Dread Infernals. So yeah, that's pretty good. If they increase the stats on the card, I start buying them.
That was a tier 4 minion. This is a tier 3 minion.
Okay, sure. But that's the whole point where that matters, right? You might say, like, does it really matter changing the stats? Like, yes, it absolutely does, because it increases the chance that you look at your shop and you're like, I guess the Paint Smudger is okay. When it's 3-2, you're not saying, I guess the Paint Smudger is okay. You're like, that's a 2-drop. I'm not buying a 2-drop in my tier 3 shop. A 5-3, you're like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, increasing the stats makes it okay to just buy the card in hopes.
Yeah,
in hope.
Buy it without the synergy, and then the synergy happens afterwards.
Yeah. Before, when the stats are bad, you can't really justify buying it because you either lose too much HP or like it doesn't make sense to like spend the resources there. But when you have the stats, it's like, okay, I can buy it and then hope that will hit something really good and or open up synergy, that kind of thing. So it helps a lot, especially early game. Like early game changing stats is the most important. Like if you change like the 6-drop stats, like like I'm still buying.
Yeah, that's true.
Counts
That's
as
very
odd.
true.
It's not
It
that
matters a
important.
bit in like you triple into it and then you just take more damage.
Yeah.
That's the only case. Later in the game, it doesn't really matter too much.
But overall, it is a large amount of Quillbur buffs, and I do think Quillburs were like the least represented archetype, even though I still think there's
Mech and Quill were suffering.
Yeah. I don't know if people are doing well in mechs with low MMR. Like I can still see it, right? Because it has a history of dominance. So maybe people are just like used to that playstyle. So people they don't see like, oh, we need a buff in the stats. With Quillbur is like, yeah, Quillbur sucks. Next up, and then we have like the spell changes.
Yep.
Yeah. So first up, we have Fleeting Vigor. It's going from a tier 4 to a tier 3, and it's also gaining stats. So it's going from 6 + 6 + 6 to +7 + 7. Yeah. Tier 4 didn't make sense. More stats makes more sense. It's playable, I guess. It's more playable, but you're still wasting money. But sometimes it'll heal you. So I guess there's use cases.
Buy it for your cleave is so nice.
Yeah, for sure. Like
or like when you level from 3 to 4, you usually float a gold. So it's kind of nice to have this pop up and then just buff your low damage, high health minion. Try to get there.
Sure. Yeah, it's playable. Like it's not a card I wouldn't.
They had to make this change after Lantern Knight was moved to 1 gold.
Yeah.
Right. Lantern Knight was just objectively
was so much better.
Shit.
Yeah. Next up, we have Shiny Ring. It's going from a tier 3 to a tier 2. This is good. It's like a spore buff. Not spore. Is it? You know the card I'm talking about? The 2/2.
2/2.
Yeah. What do you Death Rattle +1/+1?
Oh, Spawn.
Spawn. Yeah. Spawn buff. Yeah. Yeah.
I would look at this as we're making the tier 2 spells worse for Lubber. That's what this changes for me. It's like
that's one way of
nobody's buying shiny rings. Put them on tier 2.
I mean, tier 3 shiny ring is just it looks horrible.
Yeah. I have not bought a shiny ring on tier 2 yet because like a lot of the time the turn where your gold is awkward is turn 3 where you have 5 gold. You're gonna shiny ring on 2 things? That's a banana, right?
I think maybe if this was give your minions +2/+1.
Yeah, but then we started reaching the territory of like, now if like that's a stupid high tempo. Like we saw that with Guff, right? Give your guys +1/+1. Guff unplayable garbage. Give your minions +2/+1. It's the best hero in the game.
I agree, but like it's it's 2 gold.
I know
that actually matters. I can't see you spending 2 gold for this. Right? And you can't buff health. So like the only other knob we have is
well, I mean, leave it as this. It's fine.
Yeah.
Probably remove. Honestly, just remove. It's people aren't playing. At least in my experience, people aren't playing shiny rings.
You can make it a 1-drop.
I see this pop up in my shop. I'm like, ooh, that's my reaction. Like, where's my lasso? Where's my chef's? Like, that's like the difference between hitting a lasso or a chef's choice on your turn 3, and then you get like shiny ring.
That's what I'm saying. +2/+1. You know, that's if you're going with the spells, you probably need to take a look at them again. You know,
I would be okay just removing, but yeah, they probably need it for like just balance numbers.
Yeah, you need some bad spells or like
some fillers.
Not full tempo spells. Like you need not full economy spells.
Yeah.
And Staff of Enrichment, I'm down. Like make it cheaper. Like 3 gold was pretty expensive, so.
Yep. And in the right circumstances, is a sweet pull.
Yeah.
So it's totally fine.
Yeah. Like early game, you can definitely do some work with this. Primal Staff also moving up a tier from tier 4 to tier 5. Yeah. Kind of feels like Drakari now.
Yeah, not overly relevant. I would say the main reason why this could be annoying is if you have Smolder, the dragon that makes a little guy, the whelp. I would sometimes use a staff on tier 4.
His mom got fired.
Sorry?
Sorry, this is a joke. Some people will get it, and then let's move on.
Okay, sure. I didn't even hear what you were saying, so. But you have my cat's here purring, like. So,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, you can hear it probably. So that's the only play where I think tier 4 staff was better. Then you could cast the staff on 4 and get 2 of those dragons in your hand in one turn, which would get you a 6-drop a turn earlier. But it's fine. I think this just got moved around to make room for other stuff. I don't think it's like super balanced thing.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. And then we have Dreamer's Embrace. This is going from a tier 5 to a tier 4. Honestly, I don't care. Maybe it's once again moving things around, but this doesn't matter.
It's a huge Quillboar buff. You can keep you keep the golden Jazzer on your board now, and you can roll this on tier 4. So every time you roll this, it's +2 health on your gems if you keep a golden Jazzer around. And you can very much play Quillboar on 4.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I needed to see that as well. Like today, I just had a Jazzer on my board, and somebody pointed out like, oh, you could roll the thing. I was like,
so you literally just figured it out today, like okay.
Yeah. It was like today. I was like, oh, this is actually very useful. And then let's say you tripled into a brand. The way you said
that, it kind of like, oh, this is just intuitive.
It's like, I cannot believe you don't know that, Collins. Of course you keep the golden Jazzer on your board.
And I'm like,
they teach it in elementary school. Of course, dude. Like,
but that's fair. That's something to think about.
That's
like,
a relevant
I
change.
guess it does make
sense. It also creates some toxic situation where you can go like Fairy Tale Caroler and then proc it again. Like imagine if a brand rolls Fairy Tale Caroler and then this thing's like
let's not imagine that.
Let me just give +8/+8 to all of my minions. That's very nice. So yeah.
I don't feel like that was what they were thinking when they made this change. That's my
I think they were like, let's have fewer staffs in the game and more Dreamer's Embrace. I think that's what this is, right? Because it's staff to 5, embrace to 4. Yeah. So I think they were just looking at, let's look at the number. I don't think they were looking at, maybe they were looking at
Quillboars this way. You know, when the people triple their dazzers, they always
pretty obscure. That's true.
Yeah, like I feel like that's not what they're thinking.
Yeah.
It's interesting though that they've made some good changes to buff Quillboars in that tournament. So, planar telescope moving from tier 4 to tier 3. Discover a minion of your most common type. I think that's fine.
Sure, it's not something I'm gonna buy on tier 3.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with that.
Like it's like a late game buy or like tier 5 you want to buy this or so.
Yeah, but you mess up the tier 3 pool. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, you hurt Lubber. It's like get that 4-cost spell in there. Yeah. Try going for it now, sucker. Well. Yeah, sorry. Okay, good.
No, I agree with you. But overconfidence as well, moving from tier 2 to tier 3, still very good. Still would play it if you're strong. Like if you're strong, you buy it. Like
it's not my favorite just because you can still get unlucky. But yeah, if you happen to have a game where you're popping off, then sure.
Shady's just not very good at analyzing his board strength compared to.
I'm very good, but the game is not, right? Because I've got like a 90% to win, and somehow we lost it. So I mean, the game didn't analyze my board strength accordingly.
That's fair. I've had that happen.
That's unfortunate. I was gonna call customer support for that shit.
Yeah. And then we have natural blessing, going from +3/+2 all the minions that share a type to +2/+2 all the minions that share a type.
Yep. Just a small little nerf. Probably also for the Lubber stuff where people were casting blessings on 3 on pirates.
Or getting them for free. You know? How dare them.
It never felt like Giga broken for that, but
no, probably not.
I think it's mainly just a targeted Lubber nerf. All right, that's it. That's the patch, guys.
We also have some arena updates. Huh?
Kick W, mate. Oh my god.
Come on, Shady. What do you mean?
Can I get some kick W's for Collins, chat? Kick W arena. Oh my god.
Arena is a powerful and strong game type that sees tons of support over the years. Yes.
Copium.
Yes. I know. Get off the machine, Collins.
All right. You got time for a game?
Yeah, I have time for a game.
All right, cool. Let's wrap it up here then, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast.
Thanks, and hope you guys have a wonderful time. You could catch us on this stream every couple of weeks. Yep, that's the only place. Or YouTube.
Just Google HSBG podcasts for if you ever want to listen on a different platform.
Just ChatGPT it, actually.
ChatGPT it, yeah. I mean, honestly, if you just Google Shadybunny Educated Collins, you pretty much find us. So.